gives you the strongest periods you've ever had. It's been going on for 7, 8 days. The cramps are insane.
Excessive bleeding is probably one of the main side effects
Yeah.
of the copper IUD.
You know how you go to get a medical procedure, you usually ask the doctor or nurse, is this going to hurt? I went there, she says, yes, it's going to hurt a lot. And I asked ChatGPT, is this going to hurt? Everyone said, yes, it's going to hurt.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining. Today, I want to discuss something that I believe is quite important to all the girls out there. And it is a topic that I don't think is widely covered in like podcasts or videos or social media at first place. And it's something that concerns all of us, every single girl. And I've got my lovely friend Ines joining me here.
Hi, Nadia.
Hi, Ines. Thank
Hi,
you for
Nadia's
coming to Nadia's lab. I believe you have some experiences which you can share with us. And I'm so happy that you are brave enough to share them with me and my listeners. And also, you've got a lot of knowledge coming from your background, obviously, all your family being gynecologists and in medicine. Every girl obviously thinks about, I feel like, as soon as you kind of enter puberty. And something that I personally learned a lot while working in a hospital and at university is about different birth controls out there. And it feels like, obviously, you can Google it, you can see it. And I remember while studying at UCL, they would give us like a big table of like, these are the available birth controls, these are the advantages, these are the disadvantages. And unfortunately, a lot of them came with so many disadvantages. And that kind of like at a very young age, it put me off from being on any birth control. And but literally no books or ChatGPT anything can actually tell you how bad some of the side effects can be and how every single individual can have different experience with birth controls. What is some of your experience? Have you tried any of them? Which one have you used? What's some of your experience that you wanted to share?
So, because as Nadia said, I come from a line of gynecologists. When I was in high school, I remember that all my friends, like 15, 16, 17, whenever they got sexually active, they used to call me 3, 4 times a day asking me, can you please tell me, I've missed 3 days on the pill. What can I do now? Am I pregnant? I saw that because we weren't taught sexual health that well in high school. A lot of them had questions. They didn't know when ovulation happened, how fertilization works.
Yeah.
And they were calling me because of my parents and my family to get a bit more insight. I myself have tried 2 forms of contraception, which is the pill, which was Yasmin and Yasminel. And then I've also tried the copper IUD most recently, which is an experience that we can get into.
Interesting. But no, that's one thing that you mentioned is that they don't really teach you this at school. They actually, you come to a certain point and no one tells you. And quite often, feel like young teenage girls, they don't share this with their mothers.
Yeah.
And that I think we come to the problem that there is really not many people who can tell you about this.
Yeah.
And it's not something that everyone talks openly about. So you've tried the copper IUD.
Yes.
And you want to give some background on it? As in, how does it work?
Yeah. So basically, the copper IUD is one of the only forms of non-hormonal birth control, meaning that it does not release any hormones into your system. So the way it works is that because copper ion is toxic to the sperm, that causes the sperm to not be even able to fertilize the egg. And the not problem, but the disadvantage with copper IUD. So I went to get it done at the NHS. And
Did you have a problem getting an appointment, or was it like a very straightforward?
It was quite straightforward because copper IUD is also used as emergency contraception, same way as the Plan B. And they know that they have to get it done in a specific time frame. So it can't be more than 5 days after you've had unprotected sex.
Okay.
Because then if you're already pregnant and you have the copper IUD, it could result in an ectopic pregnancy, which is very dangerous. So they can't allow that. So I went to the NHS. Obviously, they'd missed up my appointments. I had to wait 2 hours in the waiting room, which is a bit stressful. And you know how you go to get a medical procedure, you usually ask the doctor or nurse, is this going to hurt? And you expect them to say no, doesn't hurt. I went there, she says, yes, it's gonna hurt a lot.
Well, I don't know what's better for them to be like honest about it or not, because it is a quite painful procedure. And I think that every single person who's done it has told me the same thing. It is quite painful.
Yeah.
So I feel like as a healthcare professional, you kind of have to be honest.
Yeah.
But I guess that person should have been a bit more empathetic and reassured you a bit. I
Yeah.
would probably say something like, yes, it tends to be a bit painful. However, we'll be here, etc. Did they offer any painkillers or anything
So no,
during the
they don't
insertion?
use they use topical anesthesia if you want, but they don't use painkillers because they say women are equipped to handle this type of pain. And she specifically told me if this were a man, they would give him anesthesia. So I'd read all these horror stories online. I asked ChatGPT, is this going to hurt? Everyone said, yes, it's going to hurt. And the nurse had another nurse along with her that I held her hand while doing this procedure. It hurt a lot. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Was it a very quick procedure or how long did
It
it
felt
last?
really long, but it was, I think, about 5 minutes.
Okay.
But basically, you get the strong, like a very strong period cramp when they're inserting it. It feels very uncomfortable. I would say it's more uncomfortable than painful. And then they tell you have to take ibuprofen, paracetamol, and the disadvantage of the copper IUD is that it gives you the strongest periods you've ever had. So usually my periods used to last about 3 days and was minimal blood. And now it seems that it's been going on for 7, 8 days. Doesn't stop bleeding. The cramps are insane.
Excessive bleeding
Hmm.
is probably one of the main side effects
Yeah.
of the copper IUD.
So when you go to get it, they ask you, do you want the 3 year one, the 5 year one, or the 10 year one? So I asked for the 3 year one. You can get it removed whenever, and they said that removing it is much easier than getting it done.
That is true, actually.
Yeah. And I chose the copper IUD because I didn't want hormonal birth control because of how the pill affected me, which we're also going to talk about.
So copper IUD, so the stressful experience. How do you feel now? So once it's in.
I think I'm going to take it out.
Unfortunately, most young ladies that I've spoken
Yeah.
to have taken it out. And I feel like it's when it first happened. So when you think of all the hormonal ones, we'll discuss them into detail, but you would suspect that the copper one, because it's not hormonal, it's like so much well tolerated, should have less side effects. And for example, like it does not cause like weight gain or
Yeah.
anything, which I think for many girls was a deal breaker. Hence, they went for that. And also, unlike the pill that you have to remember to take every single
Exactly.
day, and
Yeah.
adherence is such an important factor, with the copper IUD, you kind of don't have to think about it. But at the same time, I think the side effects and the tolerability is actually really, really poor.
Hmm.
So most of the girls do decide to take it out.
Yeah.
So is this the first type of contraception you've had, or?
No, so I was on the pill for many years and it was on and off. So I stopped it, then I started taking it, I started it again. So I think that what's important to talk about the pill, it's unlike the copper IUD, which kind of releases toxins to the sperm, provides you with estrogen and progestin, which is synthetic progesterone. So it stops the egg from even being released. So you don't go through ovulation.
Yes, that's correct.
It obviously has effects on your stress levels, on your sexual appetite. It can cause water retention. And while studies have shown that it doesn't cause any major weight gain, you still feel bloated. And because of the synthetic estrogen, you might see your breasts getting larger. But people also say it helps with acne because estrogen is very good for hydrating skin. So a lot of people that actually don't need birth control take it to have nicer skin.
Exactly. It's been used for various reasons. I guess the advantages of the pill are that unlike with a copper IUD, you don't have this painful procedure.
Yeah.
It shouldn't massively affect your periods.
It
And
regulates your
it
periods, actually.
exactly. And it is good for potentially acne, and it provides you like a more, so we get very emotional around the period time. You have mood swings, and all of this is caused because of the hormone levels.
Yeah.
So with the pill, you have that kind of like a stable, there's
Yes.
no peaks, there's no ups and downs. It's just like a very stable hormonal situation, which a lot of girls
Yeah.
benefit from. Now, as you said, there are some side effects, and the fact that you have to take it every day. And why did you stop taking it? Like, what was the reason you wanted to try something else?
So what I didn't like about the birth control pill was water retention, because I already experienced that a lot. I didn't like the diminished my desire for sex, even though its purpose is to have safe sex in terms of pregnancy. It doesn't protect you from STIs. We have to make that clear.
Very important.
Yeah, I didn't like that it diminished my sex drive. Obviously, this is from personal experience. Everyone reacts to different birth controls differently. And I wanted to have something that does not have any hormonal effects on me.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're also, I'm not going to go into details. There's like, they have been linked with cancer and as well. There is a lot of controversial information out there.
And I think there's a stigma to not talk badly about the pill.
Yeah, which in a way, especially as a pharmacist and someone who's in healthcare, and I've had patients, coming in for the morning after pill, and like young ladies, unwanted pregnancies, which obviously traumatizes everyone, including myself. And I think birth control is a good thing. But I think there is a moment to it, like risk versus benefit.
Yeah.
And quite often, especially when I meet girls in their, 20s or 30s, if they're my patients, I would just have an open conversation with them and say, okay, if this pill or whatever device that you are on is causing you unwanted effects and giving you problems, would you consider getting off with and trying some other things in cases where, someone is, let's say, in a stable relationship and they could potentially consider staying pregnant. But one thing that you mentioned as well, like all this birth control, they don't protect you from STIs, which is again so important. And that is why I think I am personally very much pro condoms, especially for young people out there, because STIs are quite common, and it's important to use them. But otherwise, other than the copper IUD and the pill that we discussed, there are different kind of contraceptions as well.
Yeah. So another one is the injection, which I had. One of my friends has had it, actually. And the injection is the form of contraception that's mostly linked to weight gain because of the amount of progesterone that it releases. So when you get the pill, you have 1 milligram per day. But when you are on the injection, which lasts, you have to get it every 3 months, this is 150 milligrams. So there's a very strong surge in your system of progestin, and that can cause water retentions and weight gain. Even though it's not that big, like studies have shown it's about 5 pounds, it's still larger than the other types of birth control.
And I guess no one really wants that, right? That's not the point.
And that's also a taboo topic to talk about. It seems that you're not allowed to talk about weight gain, even though it is a concern, especially for a lot of young girls. It's already hard to navigate diet and lifestyle without needing another blocker.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I also like to think about the sexual appetite and attractiveness, let's say, aspect of each type of birth control. So for the pill, as we've said, it's estrogen and it's progestin, which basically what it does, it thickens the mucus that's already there that doesn't allow for the sperm to go through.
Yeah.
Then it also thins the uterus lining, which doesn't allow the egg to be fertilized. It's not a very cozy environment for it, let's say. And estrogen sends the message to your brain that it shouldn't release the egg, so there's no ovulation.
Yeah.
So that's why it's called a double contraceptive, the pill. And studies have shown that it also affects how women are attracted to testosterone. So estrogen loves testosterone. So you can see that some studies have shown that when women are on birth control, they are attracted to men with more feminine features.
Mm.
And when they're not, they're attracted to like a sharp jawline. They like the smoky
Masculine
smell, the big
features.
shoulders. And some a study showed that women that were in a relationship and they stopped taking birth control, they stopped being attracted to their existing partners.
I've heard that, and it's absolutely
It's mind-blowing,
insane. It is
yes.
mind blowing, but it's funny how hormones
Mhm.
have such a
Yes.
huge effect on us, and even like interpersonal
Yeah.
relationships and how attracted you are to some. Yeah, I had actually, this was like a case study when I was studying about all of this, and it was like a lady who was on a pill with her fiance, and then all of a sudden she got off the pill,
Yeah.
and she didn't find him attractive
Yeah.
anymore. Imagine.
Yes.
It's crazy.
And my stepmom told me that a lot of her patients say, okay, now I'm on birth control, but now I don't want to have sex.
Yeah.
Is that a common thing? And actually, I experienced the same,
Yeah.
where because it affects your free testosterone levels, which testosterone is the hormone that's most linked to sex drive.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it can lower your appetite for sex.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I just feel like it's so unfair how women, we have to go through so
agree.
much, and then men
How
not
often do
as
you hear about
much.
men getting vasectomies at like
Yeah.
16? Nobody.
Yeah, we need to make vasectomies
Yeah.
more common. No, but for real, I'm happy that you've actually like this. You've looked obviously this so much up and like you've done your research, but you're actually talking about this openly.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I was younger and this, especially when we couldn't just Google things and the
Yeah.
smartphones were not as available, it was, you were like lost.
Mhm.
You didn't know what to do, right? But yeah, overall, out of the three, so the injection, the pill, and the IUD,
Mhm.
which one would you say that for you personally works best? Which one would, if you had to choose one of the three of them, which one would you go for?
I'm in a bit of a point where I think I would like to get off contraception because I've had it for so many years and I'm 27. I don't think I need it that much now. But I would say the copper for me was a bit of a traumatizing experience.
Yeah.
And I know it's not the same for a lot of women and a lot of women can handle it. But for me, it just feels like there's a foreign body inside me all the time. And it makes me anxious. And I think that that's the point. If anything makes you uncomfortable or anxious or messes with you in any way, you
Yeah,
shouldn't do it. So I think if I had
absolutely.
to, I'd go back to the birth control pill.
Pill,
Yeah.
fair. I
What do you think of the? So we've talked about birth control, but a lot of women confuse birth control with the morning after pill, because but that's we need to make it clear it's not a birth control.
No, absolutely.
And what's your opinion on the
It's,
morning after pill?
well, morning after pill is essentially, you should avoid it, and you shouldn't, because it can also mess up with your periods and hormonal balance. I would say it is a quite useful out there.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two types of pills, and there's a different age groups.
Yeah.
And then they have different ingredients as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one you can take up to 72 hours from the unprotected sexual intercourse. And the other one is you can take up to 5 days, which
Is
is,
Ella one?
yes, which is
Yeah.
the advantage. So if I ever had a patient who came in for like a morning after pill, like we would go through this discussion. And an important thing is to always make sure that this was a, whoever is taking it, they consented. So they're not been pushed into
Mm-hmm.
taking it by someone else. But they are game changers in terms of they have helped so many women and they've prevented a lot of unwanted pregnancies, but they really need to be taken at the right amount of time. And it's not something that should be practiced often.
So when I was younger and I took the morning after pill, I've taken it like 2-3 times. A lady would also always take me into a little room at Boots or whichever pharmacy place I went to, and they asked me if I've taken this before, like another time this month. Why did they ask me that?
So generally, I think they just want to check the frequency
Yeah.
of how often you take it. First of all, you shouldn't be taking it often because it can also affect your menstrual cycle. And its efficacy depends on where in cycle you are. And I think that they just want to make sure that you haven't had one very recently. Because first, obviously, they need to check that you haven't had one already. Because some ladies might be under the impression that they take one and then take one again, but it should just be as a one-off dose in really emergency situations, and it needs to be taken within that window of when it works. So either 3 days or 5 days. But it's obviously a very useful thing, but it should really be used only in case of an emergency if it's required.
Okay. And another form that we should mention is the hormonal IUD, which is like the copper IUD, but it also releases small amounts of hormones that don't allow for the fertilization of the egg. And they're actually smaller than the copper IUD. They're plastic, they're easier to insert, and they provide, let's say, a double blockage. One, because you have obviously the IUD that you put inside, that is a physical blockage, and then you have the ovulation blockage as well. I haven't had experience with those, to be honest, but I assume it's the same method of insertion, just hurts a bit less, and it's still hormonal.
Yeah. And then there's also obviously very, very old fashioned style, the kind of I like to practice, which is just tracking your ovulation. So, like using a diary, or I mean, nowadays there's so many apps. There's the Flow app that you track your periods, you track your ovulation, you avoid having intercourse on the time when you're most fertile.
Yeah.
Ovulation tends to happen between, let's say, 10 and 15 days prior to your next period. If, let's say, you have a 28-day regular cycle, then, you can expect that on your day of like day 14, day 15, day 16 of your cycle. So avoiding having intercourse when you're most fertile, also measuring body temperatures can work. But obviously, all of these things are quite risky, I would say.
Yeah.
And if you're very young, you probably don't want to rely on this. And also, if you have irregular cycles, that is also risky. And one thing that I would say personally, I haven't used any contraception in my life other than condoms, which is like a barrier protection. And I like it because it was just felt safe. And it also gave me protection from STIs and everything.
It doesn't affect the woman.
It doesn't affect my hormonal balance and no side effects of gain weight, etc. I think the key is using whatever works for you and works for your body.
Yeah.
Also, having a doctor, whether that is a GP, general practitioner within NHS or privately, or it's a gynecologist that you go to, just having someone who openly and honestly discusses all the options with you, who knows you well, and with whom you have consultations whereby you say exactly how you feel, what you're experiencing, not only like physical side effects, but also any mental, like how you're feeling, your emotional side effects of any of this, and just being able to have that discussion with your doctor and trying different things. And again, you can try, it doesn't work, you can try something else.
And listen to your body is what
Exactly.
You feel like this is making me depressed, this is making me very hormonal, this is causing me anxiety, you should stop it.
Absolutely.
The man should also take responsibility.
Yeah, and that's what, other than discussing with your doctor, I think, especially if you are in a relationship, having that honest discussion with your partner, so that you're both on the same page. And I feel like men shouldn't be expecting many things from a woman either. And obviously, our well-being is at a paramount and most important. And that sums up our episode of
Thank you for
Nadia's
having me.
Lab. Thank you for coming and thank you for enlightening us with all this
Yes,
information. And I can't wait to have you back
I can't wait to be back.
and discuss something else. Lovely seeing
Yes.
you. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode and I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.